Hello, I'm Nicola Hooper, and I wanted to talk to you about my exhibition, Zoonoses, which is being toured by Museum and Galleries, Queensland. I've been researching zoonosis for quite a long time, and with zoonosis, it's actually an animal disease that crosses over to humans, and 75% of all new viruses have their origins from animals. And so it's a really important area, I think, of research. Visitors will have a greater understanding, I guess, of how zoonosis happens, and also have a greater idea of their role in that, of humans' place within it, of our culpability as much as what some animals are. I think that hopefully people end up being less fearful, or viewers end up being less fearful, and also have a more balanced perspective on nature. Many people have an experience with zoonosis, and it can be something relatively small. This research started in 2015, prior to COVID. Back then, it was, scientists had said, disease X, virus X is on its way. We need to be prepared. And it was only a matter of time. We had SARS, we had bird flu, we had Ebola, we've had Hendra virus, we've had lots and lots of different zoonoses that have occurred. There's lots of animals that we view in a really negative way because of their association to disease. And I think that often in my work I use signifiers of animals that are related to a particular disease. So I think if we look at it and then try and read it, and then try and put ourselves in that story, you know, where we fit in it, where the human element comes into it, where it crosses over. There's no humans within my work at all. It's so we're the human looking at the work. The creation of my large insect hosts came about after reading about the use of fleas, particularly plague-infected fleas, in World War II as a weapon of destruction. So they were dropped on parts of China to try and instigate an outbreak of the plague. It seems such a terrible, terrible thing. And the idea that these little tiny microscopic parasites could be used to cause such carnage. So this quote by Edmund Burke from 1757 encapsulates everything about these giant creatures. There are many animals who, though far from being large, are yet capable of raising ideas of the sublime, because they are considered as objects of terror, as serpents and poisonous animals of almost all kinds, and to things of great dimensions. If we annex an adventitious idea of terror, they become without comparison greater. And the idea that something small and so deadly just grows in size if you compare them to their deadly capabilities, I think was really important. So the idea of playing with scale. So these were created with lithography, but obviously I'm restricted by the size of my plate, my matrix, my press. So I had those limitations to work with. So there was quite a process of, and that's really how they became almost marionette puppets, because I had to do them in pieces, create them in pieces, and then put them together. But I think if you look at the World Health Organization, who classifies mosquitoes as the most deadliest creature on earth, and you look at the deadly pest of the flea, and then we have biting flies to a lesser degree, and ticks. They certainly do grow in size in your imagination when you look at their fearful capabilities. I was lucky enough a few years ago to travel down to Brisbane West in rural Victoria to go and visit sentinel chickens. And sentinel chickens, I probably should explain, are our first line of defence, particularly in New South Wales, Victoria and other states. In Queensland we don't do it, but it's the first line of defence against mosquito-borne viruses. But what happens with these chickens, they happily live on a farm and they get tested once a week, just a little pinprick for mosquito viruses. Now, the mosquitoes bite the chickens before they bite the humans. The chickens don't get sick, but if they test positive, then councils know to spray for mosquitoes in the areas. So it's a really important device. And I love the idea that these little chickens are, working for the greater good of people, for people's health, which led me to create a children's book about the chickens. And I thought about it for a while, and I'd done a bit of research and about using citronella oil within ink. And I thought, see if I could make this work. So my citronella books are actually mosquito repellent. And so I used the citronella oil in the ink when printing, and then they have encaustic covers, and the citronella oil is also in the wax for the covers. And it was a really great project to do. I think I wasn't sure initially when I heard about it, like how was this cruel to the chickens, but it so wasn't, and they were so well cared for. So I was really frightened at the initiation of this research about these creatures. I was always scared of rats, always scared of bats, and I made a conscious effort at the start to go out and spend time with the bat rescue people, and that was just amazing. So I got to see tiny weeny baby orphan bats. I wasn't a participant, but I viewed bats being tagged, and my attitude changed completely to that. Also, I think when you realise and think a little bit more deeply about the fact that we all have benefited so much for the use of rats. So, yes, sure, they might be carry diseases, but they also have helped us via vaccines. The way they are perceived in popular culture tends to be in a fairly negative way, and I was hoping to sort of adjust the balance of the perception, give a more realistic perspective. James the Rat King works were created in response to an outbreak of the bubonic plague in 1907 in New Farm. And James Street was on the corner of James and Hawthorne Street, that block, and Garnett's grocery store. It was in the January school holidays, and 16 people caught the virus, most of them being school children. 6 died. And I created the work in response to that. Generally, as a rule, when there was an outbreak of the plague, dead rats would be found around the place where people were infected. No rats were found, which was unusual. And when they excavated and cleaned up the site, they lifted up the floorboards and they found the skeletonized rats under the floorboard. So it occurred to me that potentially it would have been a perfect place for a rat king. Rat kings are an object or a thing from German history, German myth. They are a real thing, but and there's examples of them in sort of natural history museums across the world. Rat king is a collection of rats, and their tails, generally in a cold climate, get tangled together and sort of frozen, and so they're all joined together like a wheel almost, and then they start sort of having to eat and try and eat themselves and stuff. They're really quite grotesque, and there tends to be one who's the king. And so I created the work. It's really like a Gothic myth about the outbreak at New Farm. And after doing that, I connected with Dr. Zainab Akai. She's an award-winning animator, and we created the Run Rattas Run animation. As far as the Rat King goes, to me, you know, that circular shape, the almost like a wheel, and the idea, it seems it needs to be moving. And it needs to have sound. To me, that was the premise of the animation. So with Zainab and myself, it was to get this moving, and the idea of the disease coming into it, and also the noise that you know, I could give her the drawings but the historical side to the story, and she definitely brought in the animation skill and filmmaking skill to it. There is an element of play and the child, I guess, within there. I think with my wallpapers, a lot of it's almost like a Where's Wally type of thing, where you can look at something and just see it, but then if you look a little bit closer, there's signifiers in this, but there's signifiers in all my work of the story that is behind each of them. By creating work, and I do sort of lean towards the decorative and the illustrative, I can address fairly fearful topics, but in a way that I can deal with them, but also I think that it reaches, or it allows for a greater understanding for a broader audience.